The universe is loud in a very quiet way. Are you listening? Welcome to the Cosmic Whispers podcast, where we delve into the realms of spirituality, personal growth, and the cosmic dance between the third and fifth dimensions. In a world filled with noise and distractions, we invite you to tune in to your own cosmic whispers, where we can awaken our inner wisdom and embark on unveiling the authentic self and cosmic connection. Hello. Welcome to episode 1. My name is Joan, and I'm really glad to have you all here. I just wanted to start out saying that at the heart of this podcast, my aim is to foster an inclusive and welcoming space for all individuals, regardless of where you are on your path of awakening, whether you're deeply engaged in inner work or just beginning your journey of personal exploration, or simply curious about ethereal topics, you are warmly invited. And throughout our episodes, we'll explore various aspects of life's challenges and triumphs. We'll unravel the mysteries of the soul, share tools for personal growth, and explore the delicate balance of transcending the old paradigm. And before we delve into today's episode, I would like to set the intention by pulling some cards. All right. First card for the day. Surrender to divine timing. This is a good one. I'm using the Power of Surrender cards, and I will post this in the show notes. These are really, really great cards. The next set of cards I'm using are called Moonology Manifestation Oracle cards. Speak your world into being and reveal what needs to be seen. Love it. So these are super, super relevant, and I feel very connected to the messages. All right, so the intentions for this episode today are speak your world into being, reveal what needs to be seen, and surrender to divine timing. Love it. I like to start out talking about a little bit who I am and what inspired me to start this podcast. So my name is Joan, aka Cosmic Mama. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, but I'm now based in Paris and Amsterdam. I'm a Scorpio, rooster, empath, highly sensitive person, clairsentient, claircognizant, and now I have learned that I am a transmuter. So that is a lot. And we will get into that a little bit more throughout this episode. I've always been drawn to esoteric things like crystals, tarot cards, and the spirit world. And I think my first memory of dealing with entities was when I was 5 or 6, as I had a lot of rather scary experiences growing up. I still have my first deck of tarot cards, which I got when I was around 8 or 9. I was always drawn to witchy stores, messed around with Ouija boards as a preteen, which I do not recommend, so you know what you're doing. I've always been extremely sensitive and actually was very confused about it as I had no guidance growing up. I would say officially I started my spiritual journey over 17 years ago, and it's been quite a ride to say the least. I would say the first step of breaking free from, quote, the matrix was a lifestyle awakening and change. It was like my quarter-life crisis, and I had like the 9-to-5 cubicle job and the white picket fence, the whole thing. And something just hit me, and I just realized it wasn't for me. And then I was just following kind of like my family and society's rules to what their definition of a proper life was. So I eventually just ended up quitting my job, selling everything, and buying a one-way ticket to France to attend culinary school. And that's kind of how I broke away from, I would say, the constraints of society's vision of what life should be. And as a creative person and a bit of a dreamer, I just couldn't be within the constraints of someone telling me what to do. So I've been an entrepreneur ever since then, and I continue just to follow my passions when it comes to my professional life as well as my personal life. A few years later, I would say my official spiritual awakening began, and it was triggered by a traumatic change in my life, which was a divorce. There was nothing personal with him. It was extremely, extremely liberating for me and one of the most freeing experiences of my life. I was just fully becoming my authentic self. I learned to honor who I was versus wanting to fulfill what others wanted me to be. And during this time, I also discovered meditation as well as biohacking, and I just fell down the rabbit hole of learning who I was and learning to be my optimal self. And since then, I've tried so many different things. Like I said, I started biohacking around this time, which was probably around 12 years ago. And, when it came to mental health, nutrition, exercise, You name it, I've probably tried it, or it's on my to-do list of things to try. And through that journey, I've been able to meet so many great healers and wonderful people in my lives. And I started to really attract people that were really meant to be in my life. And I know, like, it's like once you start this journey, you just almost become obsessive because you're just like, you've opened your mind and you're like, wow, there's so much more out there than going to work, going to sleep, going to this bar, doing these things because you need to be doing them. And you start to meet really amazing people that are also part of this world. Just to name a few modalities of things that I've tried. I mean, there's Reiki healing. I've had a Kundalini awakening, different types of yoga, meditation, moon ceremonies, combo, psychedelics, breath work, somatic work. I mean, there's just a plethora of really amazing healing modalities that you can try. And one thing that I would really like to stress is that when you find a healer or someone recommends a healer to you, definitely follow your own intuition on if this person energetically resonates with you. Because if they are great for your friend or a friend of a friend, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're great for you. So this is a really good exercise on intuition and tapping into your own energy to see, is this like a fuck yes or a fuck no? And then with more practice, you'll be more and more in tune to your intuition. And this applies for everything in life. And so I've been through quite a few spiritual awakenings and dark nights of the soul since then. And I'm actually at this moment finishing up another dark night of the soul in combination of shadow work. I would say the past almost 4 years has been the longest dark night of the soul that I've had. And also the first time I've really had to face my shadows. And I really didn't have a choice. And this was triggered by the pandemic, which I think is not unusual. So it can either be an extremely uplifting experience or an extremely, I would say, challenging experience, especially when you face your shadows. But, you know, one thing I learned is you can't ignore it. And at some point of time, it's going to come up and you're going to have to face it and embrace it. And I would say with shadow work, at some point, you have to learn how to channel your shadows into the light because they might not go away. They might just be a part of you, and that's totally fine. Another topic that we will touch base on is spiritual bypassing and toxic positivity, which can happen when, especially in the beginning of your awakenings, when you've just discovered wanting to rewire your brain and think positive all the time. But, you know, sometimes you just can't put the positive band-aid on your shadows and you just need to address them. This path is definitely not easy, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. To shed the layers of conditioning and find your authentic self is one of the most gratifying parts of life. My intentions of this podcast is to embark on a quest for self-knowledge and transformation, embracing the interplay between our physical reality, 3D or third dimension, and the higher realms of consciousness, 5D or the fifth dimension. What I mean by 3D is the common daily state of consciousness that we experience in this physical world on Earth. And 5D, the fifth dimension, what I mean by that is a level of consciousness that embodies oneness, unconditional love, where we experience life beyond the ego. Not to say we don't need ego, we definitely need ego, but a balanced ego. 5D in terms of running at a higher frequency and connecting to our higher selves. I think the earthly challenges in the 3D is just sorting through all the noise and distraction. And if you suffered from trauma, you know, and peeling the layers of trauma and healing, because we all know what's best for us and all our answers are within us. It's just we have to learn how to navigate our 3D psyches and reach our 5D psyches and find that balance. The inspiration behind this podcast was rather by accident. Ironically, I'm a pretty private person, but this platform is helping me strengthen my voice, strengthen my throat chakra, speak my truth, and I would say come out of the witch closet, if you want to call it that. I feel like, you know, being a very spiritual person and, you know, not everyone is ready to hear what you have to say about the 3D and the 5D, but also this is a really good exercise for me to speak my truth and connect with others that could be experiencing similar things or have already experienced certain things and can also give me guidance. For example, I had mentioned earlier that I just officially found out I'm a transmuter. I kind of already knew, but there's still a lot of things I need to learn for that in terms of how to close my aura. So I'm not just transmuting for every single random person that I'm walking by on the street. So if you're any experienced transmuters out there, I'd love to hear from you. I've also recently confirmed my soul path on planet Earth in the 3D via my friend Annette Deleu of Infinite Soul Love. And that path is actually to connect with Mother Gaia, Pachamama, Mother Earth, whatever you'd like to call her, as well as connect with humans and have the human experience. And so I feel like this podcast is allowing me to do that in a much more vast way. I think I've always been blessed of having really wonderful people gravitate toward me as an introvert. And I've just naturally been one of those people that loves connecting other amazing people with each other, no matter where in the world that I may be at the moment. And with this podcast I'm really looking forward to connecting with the masses in this way. Have you ever felt like you need a little grounding when the full moon hits? Perhaps you want to open your third eye a bit before meditation, get your creative juices flowing for a project, or balance some womb healing? Cosmic Mama ceremonial herbal teas for the chakras can help. Our 100% organic, sustainably sourced, and caffeine-free blends are meticulously handcrafted in small batches. Whether you're looking for an herbal infusion to complement an intentional moment or ceremony, or you just want to enjoy a soothing and delicious brew, Cosmic Mama is here for you. You can support our podcast and enjoy 15% off with code WHISPERS15 on cosmicmama.co. Indulge in the magic of Cosmic Mama ceremonial herbal teas and let their harmonizing essence guide you on your path of connection and well-being. So let's talk about sensitivities. My sister recently gave me a book called Sensitive is the New Strong: The Power of Empaths in an Increasingly Harsh World by Anita Moorjani. And I read this during the summer, and it was incredibly helpful in understanding what has been happening to me and within me my entire life. And I like the way that she changes the narrative to something positive, like a superpower, which is necessary to help guide us on protecting ourselves and seeing our powers in a positive light. As a child, I've been just told, oh, you're too sensitive. I couldn't make sense of the fact that I would pick up other people's moods and bad energies, and it would literally just absorb in my body to the point where I was just upset. And definitely I would feel the range of emotions like a roller coaster. And I couldn't really explain why. I didn't even realize it till I was an adult that I was an empath. And I really appreciated that book for almost comforting me on being an empath and embracing it. An empath is someone who's highly attuned to the feelings and emotions of those around them. So they feel what another person is feeling at a deep emotional level, which results in absorbing other people's energy. Empaths experience different energies and frequencies around them, and it can be really overwhelming and draining. For example, I could detect energy changes in places as well as people. Empaths' energy systems are more porous. We tend to isolate in order to recharge. Can definitely tell when someone's lying. It's literally just a feeling. You can pick up vibes easily. Emotions can make you physically ill. You can be sensitive to criticism, and sometimes you end up overthinking, and other people's needs come before your own. So there is a side effect, I would say, of becoming a people pleaser when you're an empath. And I would say another superpower is that, you're really listening to people and understanding and connecting to someone else's emotions, that you start to mirror their feelings. That becomes a little bit tricky because, if someone's feeling sad, then you start feeling sad, and then it takes some time to break out of it. A highly sensitive person is a neurodivergent individual who is thought to have an increased or deeper central nervous system. So sensitivity to physical, emotional, or social stimuli. You can sense people's needs before they voice it. And, some of the superpowers of an empath and highly sensitive person can overlap. Both definitely need to isolate in order to recharge. And I think it's actually been measured that 15 to 20% of people are actually HSP and have a biologically different nervous system, which is pretty interesting to hear. A small percentage of HSPs are actually empaths. And again, you can become very emotional, compassionate, again, sensitive to criticism. You feel different from everyone else, and sometimes you might feel alone, and just sensitive to external stimuli. And both possess very strong intuitions, but also being able to feel so much more. You often feel tired and overwhelmed, and HSPs actually are prone to anxiety or depression if it's not managed well. And I know for me personally, if I just overdo it and I don't listen to my body and I'm just out and absorbing everything around me, I do kind of fall into that dark state sometimes. And I just need to hide away for maybe 3 days, even sometimes a week, just to recharge. In terms of external stimuli that affect me, I can't watch certain scary movies. Like some horror movies I cannot watch just because I've had negative experiences as a child with entities or ghosts, if you want to call it. And so when I see stuff like that, it just really gets in my brain and takes a few days for me to recover from it. So I tend to stay away from that. I can cry at the drop of a hat if I watch Instagram stories on, rescue dogs, even if it's a happy ending. Like it really just gets in my soul. But to look at like the positive side, being so sensitive, like you really appreciate the small things in life. You can be deeply moved by beauty, like nature, or even something as simple as like a sweet commercial. HSPs prefer a slower pace, generally speaking, and like to take time to enjoy subtle experiences. Sensory overload for me shows up in sounds, smells, and energy. For example, if I'm in a restaurant that has bad acoustics, maybe, it's kind of like a loft style restaurant, and the sound is just bouncing off into my ears, it's extremely overwhelming. And I can't focus on anything because it just feels like jarring noises all hitting my ears. Like all the conversations of noises of the kitchen are just bouncing right into my ears. And it makes it very hard to concentrate, especially if I'm trying to have a conversation with someone. Smells can be difficult for me. Like if I go into perfume section or Ubers with air fresheners, I literally want to vomit within 5 seconds. I have to avoid those if I can, or just hold my breath while I walk through like a perfume section in the airport. Crowded spaces, not really for me. And the more spiritual awakenings that I have, the more sensitive I am to energy. And I just feel like I'm in a pinball machine when I'm in a very crowded place, especially if it's a crowded place in like a low frequency city or a low frequency area. And it's come to the point where I can be walking my dog Tupi down the street and I can feel the energy of someone walking towards us, even if they're across the street. And I can tell if it's a lower frequency and change my direction or, put an extra protective bubble over so we either don't get harassed or bothered by this person. In that way, it's extremely useful and definitely a superpower. Let's talk about clairsentience. Clairsentience translates to clear feeling, and it's the ability to feel the present, past, or future physical and emotional states of others without the use of like the normal 5 senses. So this would be considered a 6th sense. Clairsentience can actually retrieve information from objects, houses, public buildings, outside areas that are invisible to our physical 5 senses. You can experience inner outer energies. A lot of clairsentient people often end up becoming empaths as well, though clairsentience is on a wider spectrum of sensitivity. I guess you can call it almost like a psychic ability, where you can gather thoughts from others or detect energies even if no one is around. You can feel physical pain from other people. In the way that I use it as a superpower, which comes in super handy, I have a real estate consultancy and intuitive interior decorating business here in Paris. And when I have a client that wants to purchase an apartment, it's great because I can visit apartments, and if it has a great layout, fine. But if the energy is extremely bad there, or I find some really just negative or low frequencies living in the apartment or in a certain room, I can just, say, no, this is not the right place. And there are some entities where you can, coexist. I mean, like, I swear the entire city of Paris is, quote, haunted. So there's going to be entities everywhere. But, there's an entity in my building that feels very neutral energetically. And it's living on this, I would say, 1st or 2nd floor. But I walk by it every day, multiple times a day. And it's kind of like, hey, how's it going? No big deal. It respects my energetic boundaries. My flat is always protected. I think it slipped in once, which is very odd because I don't even know how it got in there. But it's such a harmless entity that I was just kind of like, hey, it's almost like it walked in to check it out and then walked out right away. It was like, all right, I respect your boundaries. So it comes in really handy when I'm moving, when I'm looking to move apartments, cities, and also for my clients and my friends as well. I like to check out spaces for my friends just to check in and make sure everything's okay. So with all these sensitivities, how do we feel different? One of the things is that empaths and just sensitive people tend to be people pleasers because they need people around them to feel good in order to feel good themselves. So they're constantly trying to rescue or help people despite their needs. And I have been extremely guilty of doing this. And it's taken me a lifetime to stop being a people pleaser. But again, work in progress, always learning and always becoming firmer with my boundaries and exercising my throat chakra. And making sure to close your chakras, close your energy centers so you can still connect and empathize with other people, but not take it on as your own, and putting an emphasis on your needs before others to make sure you're doing what's best for you. If you don't do that as an empath, you end up feeling the disappointment of others if you do not do what they want, and that takes precedent over your own needs, which can get really dangerous and can get really exhausting. And eventually gets you to feel resentment. Sometimes you have to disappoint other people. Maybe, feel a little bit guilty in the beginning until you practice and realize, okay, I need to put my needs before others. Because what you're actually doing is giving your own power away. You're giving your own power away to other people. And it's just following your intuition, finding that fine line and finding that balance and that protection. And it's not to say, don't be scared to meet people. It's just learning to protect yourself and manage it. And you know what? If it requires a period of retreat, just retreat, recharge, and emerge again when you feel safe. And this takes practice. And I know when I fall into that people-pleasing state and I end up, going to these places where I already have a feeling it's not going to be good for me, or saying yes when I really want to say no, is I actually end up getting physically ill. A little part of this is also because I'm a transmuter as well, but it's quite a few factors of my sensitivities combined. And I'm still learning. So as time goes on, I'm learning to discern and be stronger in my voice and saying no, or speaking my truth and being like, oh, that's not going to be good for me, but thank you. And there's also a few tips to manage this as well. I would say always keeping yourself grounded, connecting to Mother Earth, drinking Cosmic Mama's grounding tea made by yours truly. I drink that in the mornings when I feel like it's needed. Protection bubbles are extremely important, and this can vary person to person. I know one of my friends' protection bubbles actually didn't work for me, and my spirit guides gave me my very own protection bubble, which was extremely effective when I was walking outside and walking down the street or in lower frequency places. Drinking water, salt baths and showers can help cleanse. Protective crystals. I always have a black tourmaline on me or some kind of black crystal, which absorbs negative energies. Cleansing spaces with Palo Santo or sacred herbs. I know Palo Santo is up for debate for sustainability, but if you can find a sustainable source, I'd highly recommend that as a cleansing tool. And first and foremost, following your intuition. Your body will give you signals when you don't need to be somewhere, or will give you a warning like, hey, maybe you should reconsider. Intention is very powerful. Having the intention of being protected and not absorbing energy is very helpful as well. Sound baths. I love sound healing. And that's helped me in, when it's a full moon and it's just really rocking my psyche. I can do a really great sound bath. In Paris, actually, a place called Zen and Sounds, where they have a room full of gongs and crystal bowls. It is absolute magic. And it's really brought me back to earth on some days where I've been extremely anxious and I just couldn't shake it. Empaths can also be transmuters. Transmuter can absorb negative energy, transform it into positive energy, or like a lower frequency to high frequency, if you want to call it that. And it's, it helps the collective, it helps in healing, it helps also yourself. But this is very, very exhausting at times. For me personally, I've had moments where I was transmuting ancestral trauma and it would just lead me to 3 days of crying. And it's knowing that it's not 100% mine, but it's, a part of my family's or a part of the collective. It feels really intense. This is another thing that I'm learning how to deal with. Through Annette, she had passed me the message from my spirit guides that if I'm in a restaurant with a lot of kind of stagnant lower frequencies that I'm absorbing and I start to feel kind of like this panic coming in, just to step outside and take that energy and connect with Mother Gaia and transmute it that way. Breathe, come back in and regroup. So that concludes episode 1. I wanted to send my gratitude to all of you that are tuning in to get to know me a little bit better. I have a great lineup of guests coming up, so I look forward to connecting with them, connecting with you. And remember to always follow your intuition, go with what resonates with you and your energy, and stay curious. Bisous from Paris. DJing has provided me with a channel for creativity as well as another form of meditation. Stay tuned for one of my cosmically curated DJ sets coming up shortly. Thank you for being a part of our community. Be sure to connect with me by hitting subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. I greatly appreciate your support and would be thrilled if you could leave a review. Your reviews help this podcast reach a wider audience and foster a stronger collective connection. You can also connect with me on Instagram and YouTube at The Cosmic Whispers Podcast. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear and would like to check out the full set, be sure to find me, Cosmic Mama, on SoundCloud. That's soundcloud.com/Cosmic Mama.